Hey guys, Silven here. Today we're going to learn how to kill Zulrah for the RuneScape idiot. This guide will teach you how to beat Zulrah using well-established rotations and tactics, while also showing you my own personal method that can make it a lot easier to learn by reducing disorientation when you lose your place in the rotation. It can also be used by veterans to make Prophet's Neck a lot more AFK so you can watch Netflix or jerk off while farming her. So, in today's video we'll be going over the requirements, how to get there, the rotations and method, my personal method and tips, and finally the strategy for each form and the fight in general. First off, let's look at the requirements. You need to have part of Regicide done in order to access the fight, which means you need 56 agility and 10 crafting at a minimum, along with the completion of Underground Pass, Biohazard and Plague City. The minimum stats to start farming Zulrah herself are 75 range, 75 magic, 45 prayer and 70 HP, so you're not constantly eating. I'd very strongly recommend higher levels and definitely an investment into higher HP and defense as well, but this is the absolute minimum. When I first started doing Zulrah, I was 75 range and 82 magic, and I was getting around 10 to 15 kills an hour with shitty gear and supplies. So it's definitely doable. However, I'd recommend having 80 plus range, magic, HP, and 70 plus defense and prayer if possible. For our gear, there are going to be two main setups for most players: Void and a combination of range and magic. This setup is essentially the minimum for Zulrah. I understand that the blowpipe and the trident can be quite expensive, but they increase your damage and inventory management so much I wouldn't really do Zulrah without them. Void gear is very good for inexperienced players as it offers minimum swaps and it has low requirements which offer a lot more inventory space for food. You'll need 2 prayer, 1 mage, 1 range and an anti-venom plus potion. Remember, Zulrah uses venom and not poison, and I'll explain how it works later on. A one-click teleport as dying makes going back really awkward because you have to manage your food when you're going back, and it can be quite expensive because you got to pay for the teleport. And lastly, 2 Ring of Recoil, since one can break during the fight and you'll quickly die if you don't have recoil on. Also, if you have any other swaps such as an Anguish or an Occult Necklace, I'd swap out Sharks for them. I just wanted to put the minimum here. Next, this will be roughly your setup once you get into the swing of things and you have decent items. You'll essentially be swapping between an entire mage and range outfit. You have a similar inventory as last time, but you have the rune pouch to cast Vengeance or as a quick teleport out. If you have an ornate pool in your house, it's extremely useful for farming Zulrah too. This setup is a lot faster than Void, so if you got your swaps down pat, you really should be using this over the former. There may be some talk whether Vulnerability or Vengeance is better. In my own personal testing, I found Vengeance to be considerably better and consistently better. Also, I've tried bringing a spellbook swap and taking both, but quite often it would force me back a bit earlier due to lack of food. So how do we get to Zulrah? Well, there are 3 methods. You can teleport with a scroll, which are currently 20k. You can take the boat for 1600 coins to Port Tyrus and walk, or you can use the fairy ring teleport with the code BJS and walk. You'll need 76 agility for this one, so for the lower levels it won't be possible. Whilst learning, I'd recommend taking the boat or the fairy ring as you may die a few times wasting money on teleports. After getting experience, the teleports will be the most cost efficient by far. Now let's talk about how we actually kill Zulrah. Let's first break down the fight. She has 4 rotations that she will randomly choose from when you enter the fight. These consist of many phases where she'll do fixed attacks, except for the mage form, spawn snakelings, and spit poison. Each phase consists of one of Zulrah's 4 forms. The only parts of RNG in the fight are which attacks the mage form uses and the rotation she picks at the start. We're going to start from the top with rotations. So, although there seem like a lot of phases to memorize, rotation 1 and 2 are very similar, and rotation 3 and 4 are very similar. So, only 60 to 75% of the phases are unique, while quite a lot of the start and the end to each rotation are the same. This rotation guide was created by OSRS on Reddit and reformatted by Robo, of course, on Reddit to face the south, as that's the best way to have your camera whilst doing Zulrah. I've also fixed it up a bit because it was actually a little bit wrong, and there'll be a link in the description for you. To make use of this diagram, I put it on your phone and then have the phone under your PC screen, print it out like we did back in 2005 with quest guides, have it on your other screen if you have one, add them to your wallpaper. Or I have one friend who mentioned using Always on Top. It's a program to put things on top of your other windows. However, if you do click it, you'll click off RuneScape and it might screw you over a bit. To use the rotation guide, you turn your camera south and stand where the purple dot is each time. Each colored dot represents which form of Zulrah will appear. and you'll have to figure out which rotation you're on by the first few phases. The Jad phase has either a protect from range or mage icon over it. This indicates the first prayer you need to be on while entering this phase, as you'll be alternating each attack. Now, I'm not going to go into every little detail of every single phase of each rotation, because that'll add another 15-20 minutes onto an already long video. There'll be an unlisted video of me explaining how I'm using the rotations to complete a Zulrah kill in this video's description. Now, here's my personal method on how to determine roughly what to do without using the rotation diagram, so if you lose your place, you're not fucked. When Zulrah swaps from range to melee, the next form will be magic, and vice versa. It will never be the same form. Zulrah slowly forces you to each side of the island. Every time she spawns at the top, or south, of the island, you'll be moving to the opposite side from which you were on. She's rarely the same color 2 times in a row. There's only 2 times out of all 4 rotations where she's in her range form and then she swaps to range form again. But these swaps are obvious because it's just half the normal time she'd be in that phase, and she won't attack you for the first half. This will also confirm exactly where you are in the rotation, as it's unique. 2/3 of the time after a melee phase, it will be a mage phase, not a range phase. So it's most likely going to be a mage phase following a melee phase. She always mages before Jad phase, and rotations 1 and 2 are identical from here on till the end, and the same with 3 and 4. If a green form Zulrah attacks with magic, you're in Jad phase, and you have to alternate prayers quickly. Obviously there are a few exceptions to these rules, but it'll give you a good chance of survival if you lose your place. Now let's talk about the forms. First off, we have her melee form. It's red, uses melee, and is weak to magic. Protection from melee does not work as she attacks the ground, not you specifically. If you get hit by this attack, you'll be stunned and knocked back, likely to be hit again by a second melee attack. You can still eat in between, and sometimes you can escape by click spamming, but not consistently. To avoid this attack, you can stand in one of the 2 safe spots here and here, if they're not covered in gas of course. Or you can run between these 2 points, or these 2 points, whichever is safe during the wave you're on. The range form is green, uses range and is weak to magic. There is no trick to this form, just protect from range and you won't take any damage from her specifically. The mage form is blue, uses magic and range and is weak to range attacks. You'll want to use protect from magic as more attacks are mage than range, but quite often it'll attack you with range, and sometimes the entire phase will just be range attacks to tree you. It's entirely random, so you can't predict which style they're going to use with this attack either, so just make sure you're eating if you're under 55 HP. If you're using Vengeance in the fight, you'll be using it strictly only on this form, as you can cast it up until the range projectile hits you. When you see the green range projectile leave Zulrah, just quickly click on Vengeance and it will always reflect her attack and not the snakelings. Just to clarify 100%, casting Vengeance works differently to how the prayer works in this fight. It can be cast a lot later. The Jad form is green. It uses range and magic in alternating attacks. It appears only once each rotation, and it's near the end of the rotation. In rotation 1 and 2, it will start with a ranged attack and alternate from there, and in rotation 3 and 4, it will start with a mage attack and alternate from that. To protect correctly, you'll need to swap before Zulrah starts coming up from her attack. The easiest way to do it is pray the opposite of what attack you can visually see come at you. If it's a ranged projectile, pray magic, and vice versa. This is because the attack is already decided when you see that projectile. You're literally praying for the next attack that's going to happen. Here is an example of her attack. You can see as she's coming up, this is the point where we need to have our prayer up. Any later and the attack will just hit regardless. We're actually praying for her next attack once you can see the projectile. Here are some more tactics you'll need for the fight in general. Turn off auto retaliate. The snakelings will mess everything up otherwise. Attacks are decided during Zulrah's attack animation, not when the projectile hits. We've actually already gone through that. Zigzag swapping is the easiest method for me. I click up and down like so, just like this. I'd recommend having your weapon on the far right hand side of the inventory with a space underneath, so when you switch the blowpipe, the shield goes automatically underneath, and then when you're swapping back to it, you just have to zigzag again, so it doesn't go in some weird place in your inventory. Take 2 recoils in case you run out, especially when learning. If you start a new rotation on a slow kill, take another anti-venom and check your recoils as they may be running out. Stay above 55 health. A 41 hit plus 2 snakeling max hits of 15 equals 71. If you eat your shark plus Karumbuan, that'll heal 38, but if Zulrah max hits again on the next hit for 41 and you eat another shark, you'll take 54 damage in total. Having 55 means you're not going to die here. On death, you'll keep a rune pouch and burrows items intact, along with everything else. But there are a few items that are completely destroyed and not kept at the priestess. Have a look at the wiki page, as there are unusual things such as herb sacks, but the lunar staff is one that you may have due to the fairy rings that will be destroyed. Anti-venom plus is required for Zulrah. Although you can cure with 2 doses of anti-poison or 1 dose of anti-venom, it will just get reapplied again by Zulrah and you'll have to use another dosage. Anti-venom plus gives immunity, so you don't have to worry about it for the rest of the fight. So I hope some, if not all of these tips have helped you and you're able to get your first and many more Zulrah kills. Let me know how the video was. Message me if you need any more help. You can message me here or in game or any of my social media stuff. And I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.
On the way down screaming, whoa. If all we have is time, then we'll be alright.